All right. Hello, and welcome everyone to Study International's webinar called Is a PhD Worth It? I'm Lillian, the Senior Editor of Study International, the #1 resource for international students to get inspiring interviews and expert insights. Today, we're talking to Justin Ng, a PhD in Cell and Developmental Biology student at Rutgers University. Justin, hello and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to answer any questions you guys have about studying in the US or doing a PhD.
So in this session, Justin will help us understand about the top award in higher education today, the PhD, the longest, the most challenging degree anyone can try to earn. So Justin, let's start by going back to that point in your journey. When you decided, what made you want to commit to the most challenging, if not the most difficult academic endeavor today?
So this is going to be a long one, so sit tight. So what made me want to do a PhD was mainly driven by how I grew up. Growing up, I had to do caregiving. Around when I was 18 to 20, I had to caregive for my grandmother who was sick. She was dying of lung cancer, and at the time, I was thinking to myself, why is everyone having so much fun out there, uh, pursuing the degrees while I'm here caregiving? It's one of the most hardest things I've ever done. And I think after the experience of taking care of her, I was interested in biology. So having interest in biology and wanting to do something different in science or in trying to treat diseases, I then went on to do a undergrad in biomedical science. After doing that, I realized research was really something that excites me. Discovering new things and trying to find solutions to human health problems was something on my to-do list. So eventually, that undergrad prepared me for my PhD eventually. And doing a PhD is challenging, and I think it's always worthwhile reflecting upon why I'm doing it. So having to pursue this and having to know that at the end of the day, I am trying to contribute to something that could help people, make people's life easier, and of course, the further the discovery of science. So I suppose the quick answer to this is I was driven to do a PhD because I really wanted to make a difference in human health research, and I wanted to dedicate my work to my grandma.
This is an inspiring story for those who want to read more about Justin's PhD, which is on a really interesting topic. All you have to do is search Justin Ng, studyinternational.com, and we've already written about his PhD. But today he's about to tell us more about another important aspect of his journey thus far, about how he got into a PhD and is it all worthwhile. So our next question to him was, what was the application process like? We've spoken to other PhD candidates and they told us like you're going to need at least an entire year and you're going to need like so many information and documents. Like it is a big undertaking. What was it like for you, Justin?
So for me, I was surprised when you said 1 year because I did it in 6 months, and I think to myself again and again, wow, how did I do that in 6 months? For me, I could only speak upon the US application process, a little bit about Australia because I did that too. For the US, most applications deadlines are on November 1st or December 1st. That means I had to start during summer. That's around maybe May, June, or July. The application requires a few documents, of course. One of them is being your statement of purpose. This is a bit different from an SOP. You need to write about why you want to pursue a PhD and why you're the right person for it. Apart from that, you need your 3 recommendation letters. They could be from previous employers or it could be from previous PIs you might have worked for. They also ask things about, of course, language tests. That's a minimum. They also ask about supplementary essays that you might want to include. These could describe things outside of your academic life. They could describe about your hardships, your problem-solving abilities, your quirky personalities and so on. It really depends on the school because each school, I've applied to around 12 schools. Each school has different documents they want. For example, one of the schools might want to put all the questions into one SOP, statement of purpose. Other schools break it down by questions, by individual questions. So maybe they break down the SOP into different paragraphs where you answer separately on the application platform. So in the US application system, they have this database called the Common Apps or the Common Application System, where you will make one account and apply to multiple schools. Some graduate programs have their individual websites that you apply to, but the common thing that ties everything together is they would require a SOP, several recommendation letters, academic transcripts, your English test, and maybe a supplemental essay. uh, I think that was documents. In terms of the process, after preparing all my documents and asking for my letters of recommendation, I also contacted PIs. So I look into the websites and I find prospective professors I might want to work with. In my case, I am pursuing a cell and developmental PhD. That means that I would look for people working in life sciences. The way I do that is I type the university name and I put keywords related to the PhD. If the program is called a molecular bioscience PhD at Rutgers, I would type molecular bioscience PhD faculty, and that will give you a bunch of people that you might want to contact to. For contacting, basically I cold email the people that I find myself interested in. I make my emails short. I put in my CVs. I put in my skills. I say how my experience might align and complement their research. After contacting PIs and submitting the application, I usually wait around, let's say, a month to get a response. Usually, that is where you have first priority. So, for example, one of the dates that one of the response I received was in December. So the deadline for that school was December 1st. They sent me a response around just before Christmas. And at that time, they gave me several dates to pick for an interview. So I would pick the date that I want to do an interview. Some schools might fly you to their school in person to do in-person interviews. I had that experience once. Uh, so I had a mix of two kinds of interviews, one that's being online and one's being in person. They fly me in, they paid for everything, which is really nice, and they toured me around the school. During the interview process, it depends school by school to school. You might get back-to-back interviews with the prospective professors, or you might be talking to the head of the faculties. During that process, you might meet other people at the same time. Many schools host mixers or host gatherings to let every prospective interviewee or prospective PhD student meet each other, talk about their interests, meet the existing students, and have them share about their experiences at their schools. So I've joined a couple of these mixers. I've also was one with students who volunteered for Rutgers to talk about the molecular bioscience PhD program. And these programs are very fun. We usually answer student questions and give them a perspective of our lives, our day-to-days. After the first interview, which is between January to March, you probably would hear a response around April to summer, to early summer. It really depends on the school. uh, After you get a response, you will have a deadline to accept or reject the offer. So in the US, they would have this universal deadline for 99% of the schools there. And you have to give a decision before that date or you forfeit your acceptance offer. After doing that, you would usually get your I-20 and then you would book your visa interview where you get your F1 or J1 depending on which you choose. During that process, it takes maybe around one month or 2 months to get it sorted. It really depends on the country that you're in. So I could only speak for Malaysia where I grew up in, but countries like India or China might take a little longer. After getting your visas, you buy your plane tickets and you join the pre-departure orientations that these schools always host. Once you fly there, you join their orientations and get settled in. So that's pretty much my application process. Yeah.
Um, that is a lot to unpack, Justin. Did you do it while you were working, or did you spend like all your time just on applying? Because I heard just now you said you applied to 12, so everything you said multiplied by 12. Am I right?
Exactly. I was actually working full time at the University of Malaya at the time, doing some research. And during that time, it was really difficult because you had to like not only prepare all your documents, you had to personalize each document, especially your SOPs to each school. You have to write. You have to write very specific and convince the schools why you're the right person for that. It took a long time, and I would say, in hindsight, if 6 months would 6 months be enough time, I would say you might need a bit more, maybe 7 or 8.
So now that you've applied to so many and you've gotten into Rutgers and you are also helping future PhD students, are there certain things you can do to strengthen your PhD application? Do research experiences help you out? Do publications help you out?
So this is a very good question. I would say that research experience do make you a stronger candidate. Some schools would state that they don't require you to have experience, but for Rutgers, at the time where I applied for the MBS program, they said that research experience would make you stronger and would be required for this program. So that would be one thing that applicants should consider. In terms of publications, most schools would say no, but sometimes it can be helpful. It can be helpful to have publications, but not about, but regarding publications, you should be very cautious about the quality of your publications as well. Because I know that in this publish or perish culture that we live in, sometimes people might publish a lot of low impact factor journal articles, and that could work counterintuitive. Sometimes it depends on the quality of the paper itself. So I would say for this question, research experience and publications do help you. It's not necessary, but it does make you a stronger candidate. I think the second question is, what were the interviews like, right?
Yeah.
All right. So for the interviews, I'll give some examples of one in person and one virtual one. I'll start with the virtual one. I had several interviews, one with Rutgers, of course, one with the University of Michigan, one with University of Texas, San Antonio. Uh, what was similar between these three schools were they were all on Zoom. You were given several options to pick the times you want. You were able to suggest times that work best for you, because I did mention that some of these interview slots would mean that I had to wake up at 1 a.m. in Malaysia time to attend, and some of them were very accommodating to change the time. Uh, Sometimes it's hard to get the time you want because they are trying to get 3 or 4 faculty members to agree on one single time slot. So sometimes if you don't get the time that you really preferred, uh, do try to empathize with the school. They're trying to get like as much faculties as they can to attend those interviews. So when we go into these interviews, they can be of different varieties, different styles. Some of them might be group interviews where one head of faculty and three or four faculty members will interview you together. Some of them will be back to back. Some of them would be like a mix of group and individual interviews. So what makes it similar is sometimes the PR of interest will interview you themselves. So that's great. You get to actually talk to them and ask them about their research. In terms of the conversations we had, it can be all kinds of stuff they ask. It could be stuff about your CV, your experiences, what makes you interested in pursuing PhDs. Other interviews could go like conversations talking about what makes you so interested in science, or it could be something like what about your experience in outside of science? what makes you a great critical thinker, what makes you a great problem solver. So it could go from very technical to very casual conversations. For in-person interviews, the one I had one with John Hopkins where they flew me in. So we had a 2-day interview where we met 5 faculty members on day one and 5 faculty members again on day two. So it was back to back, and it was a tremendous opportunity because those interviews really got me to meet them in person and also tour around their labs as well. I got to see the facilities, the environment. I got to see how big their labs is, how many people they have, what resources do they have, and what kind of opportunities are there. And I really enjoyed my time interviewing in John Hopkins slash Genelia at the time. So, but the thing that is common between both styles of interviews is that they really want to get to know you and they want to see if you fit their school, whether your research is complementary to the professor or complementary to the wide faculty that does all kinds of stuff.
I know you've talked about a lot right now, but and I feel like if you're going to unpack about the quantity versus quality of research, there's going to be a whole new episode on its own. In fact, the interviews itself is like it's, we can talk about another hour for this. But I want to move on to the a lot of what I would say that a lot of students find it their biggest obstacle, which is cost. Especially if you're from the global south, especially if your currency is not as strong as the currency of the countries that you want to go to. So this can feel um, very off-putting to a prospect, even though the reality may not be the case. So you are in the best position to tell us, like, how much did the application and tuition cost? Did you get any financial aid? We want to, maybe you can share your experiences so that people can get more information about this topic.
Certainly. So in terms of application fees, most of the schools I applied to don't have application fees. Some of the schools will ask you how much your family makes a year, and if you are under a certain amount, they would omit it as well. So I think for my applications, I only had to pay for 2 or 3 schools, and for those schools, I pay around maybe $100 each, but it's not too bad if you consider the schools that don't have application fees. So it really depends on how badly you want to get into that school and maybe and and determine from there if it's worth the fees. In terms of tuition costs, I know that for master students you have to pay tuition, but for most PhDs, your stipends or what would they call it, fellowships or TA-ships would cover those. And it depends on the schools themselves on how much you get. So, for example, at Rutgers, I believe the students here are compensated fairly. We do have a union that kind of bargains with the school about our contracts. So I feel like when I'm doing my PhD here, I felt well supported financially. I was able to send a couple hundred back to my parents from time to time. But sometimes to answer this question, I think it really depends on your lifestyle and how much do you spend per month. So I would say that my stipend does cover my tuition and it does cover my rent, food, lodgings, and basic necessities. And I do have extras that I could use to go to New York or Princeton to spend a weekend. So I would say the tuition cost, I mean the financial aid is pretty fair in my respect. And for everyone's information, you can Google this and you can Google every school's stipend out. So if you type Rutgers MBS PhD stipend, they will give you that amount right there. If you type Harvard PhD biology PhD stipend, the information's right there. The reason why I'm a bit hesitant to give the exact amount is sometimes this changes year to year. So I don't want to mislead people into thinking that you get X amount when you apply to the school. Things might change, but it really depends on uh, but it really depends on the school and how much funding they're receiving.
Looking back, what do you think was the most challenging part of your 6, 7 months application process? And why do you say this is the most challenging?
I think to me there was two things that were challenging. One was writing the SOPs, wanting to write them in a very elegant way, a very professional, elegant, and genuine way or authentic way was pretty challenging because you're given a word limit. And at the time I had a page limit of one, I have a 1 page limit. But I think these years, the PhD process are looking for just below 650 words. I'm not too sure about this. So do check your application portals and see what is the word limit there. Sometimes you might write a lot and you have to cut things down, and thinking about what's the most important thing or what most important story to tell is can be one of the most daunting tasks out there. With regards to other challenges, I think reaching out to prospective PIs can be challenging. While it's not necessary in the US to reach out to prospective PIs, though it might help, in other countries like the UK or Australia, you might want to have reach out to the PI in advance because some of these schools might require a permission letter from that PI before you could apply. So I know places like Monash, which I previously applied, requires a permission of application, and usually the prospective PI will give you that letter. So that's one difference between the US and Australia. But back to this question, the most hardest things I think is writing the right SOP personalized to that school, and also what else? Reaching out to prospective PIs. So those two are the hardest things in my opinion.
Yeah, I think most of us, especially after you've gotten a bachelor's, you're working a little bit. It's like we don't sit down and reflect on like purpose. We don't sit down and reflect on what's my story. But when you are applying for these things, you actually have to, come up with a 1 page or even 600 words. And that can be a lot if you've not thought very, very hard about it.
Yeah, sometimes I would say that 600 words is it's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to just write the right story in 600 words. I tend to write just too much, and I think many students would say the same. They would write so much and struggle to cut things down.
Yeah. But I feel like um, writing the word count is one aspect, yes, but knowing what is your story is also another aspect to know. And I feel like not many people know that very well. Whether you are applying for a bachelor's degree, see this in personal statements, and we also see this in statement of purposes that we don't know our story. And but the application process is when we are forced to sit down, reflect, and actually tell that story.
Yeah,
And I feel even though you took 6 months to apply, you probably knew your story earlier than that 6 months.
that is a possibility. I know some people who still don't know what they want to do in life, and that's okay as well. They write about how they don't know what their life purpose is, but they did write that this path is bringing them closer and closer to that life purpose. But don't quote me on that. I don't think that's a guarantee to get into grad school.
Um, okay, based on your experience thus far, how much time and effort have you invested into your PhD? I know we covered this a little. You spent about 6 to 7 months applying, and now in your second or third year of your PhD. But about effort, that's like a more subjective measure. How much of it have you invested into your PhD, and do you regret any of it?
You mean like how much effort I'm putting into completing my PhD, or based on the effort into the application and then in hindsight?
Into your PhD now? I think maybe in totality, ever since you applied until now, this whole journey.
I would say I could give you a day-to-day of my weeks as a second year PhD student. So
Mm.
around this year I'm TAing, so that means I'm doing a teaching assistantship. So I do spend around 11 to 15 hours a week trying to help professors run their courses. This include doing discussions, marking, proctoring, exams, and so on. Of course, answering student emails. I spend the other maybe 25 to 30 hours doing research. And in research, it could be anything from setting up your experiments to mentoring undergrads in the lab to the meetings that you have with your PIs one-on-one, to doing what else? Experiments, yeah, mostly experiments, mentoring your undergrads and collaborating and speaking to your PIs, lab mates, or collaborators. Uh, I would say the other part is, well, I do spend another maybe 10 hours on courses. I still do take some courses in my PhD. This year I'm a bit adventurous, so I decided to do a TA-ship, take two courses, and then do all my research, which is quite challenging. I don't recommend it, but it has been very fulfilling. I got to learn a lot. The courses I took along my PhD really helped me understand my research more, really helped me think critically and think more broadly about the implications or things that we could do better about the topic. I find this very complementary to my work, and I do like this aspect of PhD in America. Other countries won't have coursework requirements. Uh, in terms of, do I regret any of it? Not really. I really love being in the lab. I love being in academia. I love how I get to interact with people and talk about science, talk about the cool experiments, learning about the cool things my friends are doing, teaching, having to see how people improve and grown to appreciate biology. That's really fulfilling to me. I don't think I regret it in any way. There were times it was hard, it was tough, like preparing for very difficult exams, preparing for like those interviews I had months ago. Those were really nerve-wracking months because I didn't know what to expect for interviews. But going through the whole application process and now being in grad school, I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
Your answers strike me a bit different from, what you would read on Reddit that yes, PhDs is the most challenging. But a lot of them also say that PhDs can be very lonely. But your experience doesn't seem very lonely. Yours seem very interactive. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Of course. I think I'm very lucky that I'm in a very fun lab. So my lab does go for outings like once every month or every 2 months. My lab has a D&D group, so it's like Dungeons and Dragons. We play Dungeons and Dragons like every other month. The whole department has like a picnic event on Fridays. So like every in our school, and I don't know if this is the same for other universities, many department buildings have their own departmental events. So when I was a rotation student, I was rotating in this building that they had the most gnarliest and coolest Christmas parties, and it was like a surfers team party, and it was during winter, and everyone dressed up in Hawaiian t-shirts and so on. They had Halloween as well. I remember our lab was dressed up as SpongeBob, so I was Barnacle Boy from the cartoon, and my PI at that time, my rotation PI, was dressed up as Plankton, which is very funny. More recent things that happened in our lab, in the Yang Liu lab at Rutgers, we went on a hike to one of the state parks a few months ago during the summer. We also did D&D nights. We used to have game nights where we compete with other labs and play Catan, but things have been a bit busy, so that hasn't been going on. But yeah, I think the beauty about the PhD life is, it can be lonely if you make it lonely. If you surround yourself with all these amazing people that you can find not only in the lab but outside the lab as well. For example, I run a student organization for Southeast Asian grad students, and we meet up once a month to do cool stuff. So, for example, last month or the month during autumn, we went to a farm. And in the farm, we were doing apple pickings, we were doing pumpkin pickings, and we were having so much fun at that time. This end of this month, we're going to do Thanksgiving, so we're going to do a potluck where all the Southeast Asians will cook Southeast Asian food and then serve it to the local Americans to let them try Southeast Asian cookings. Outside of the CFC graduate group, I also do. I also go to the gym. I do Muay Thai, so there is a MMA club on campus. I join that once a week. Honestly, I think the PhD life is quite exciting if you surround yourself with the right people. It can get very lonely, and I understand that because I had times where I had to push experiments and work every day, even weekends. But honestly, I think if you take care of yourself and reward yourself from time to time, especially if even if the achievement is this small, I think it will do wonders for your mental health. Because I do think PhD can affect your mental health negatively if you're not cautious enough uh, to manage your well-being.
So refreshing to hear that from a PhD student. I'm glad that you're, having such a good time there. Sounds exciting. Makes me want to be a PhD student. Okay, I'm not too good in STEM, so maybe I shouldn't speak too soon. So, next question is, you're in your second year now. What does the future look like for you? You came from a research background. Do you plan to stay in academia? Do you want to move to, a more industry role? And maybe you can tell us also, what are the financial returns you envision in your future career? Because when we speak to other PhD students, they also say that it also really depends on what PhD you are. Um, some PhDs are very financially rewarding, some are less so. So I'm interested to know in your unique perspective on this.
Certainly. I think I'll give you one perspective based on visa availabilities. So based on today, and things might change tomorrow, I don't know. Based on today, I'm planning to go into academia for not only the reason that I love teaching and I love wanting my independence, my ability to start an independent lab and train the next generation of scientists in research. I do think academia is one of the best ways for internationals to remain in the country if they remain in the US if they want to. So one of the most hardest visas to get out there is the H-1B, and many industries are capped for the H-1B. So there are limitations to how many H-1Bs a company could try to apply for. At the same time, they are so expensive. Uh, for academia, there's no cap on it. As long as the institution is interested in you, you should have some kind of fair chance. I cannot guarantee that for any prospective PhD students, but it seems like the case today. Other visas available are like I think it's called OB1 or something called the extraordinary visa. Those are other possibilities as well, but they are challenging, and you might want to get a lawyer to help you with that because it is a arduous process to get those done. But back to this question, I do plan to pursue academia because I really want to start a lab and I want to mentor people in STEM, and also contribute to science too. In terms of financial returns, uh, I'm not too sure because I know if you want to look up a professor's PI, you can do that. Many public institutes, including Rutgers, are all state schools. And if you go into this database, there's a .gov database, a US database that shows you everyone's salary. You could probably guess and predict the salary of a associate professor or a assistant professor at that institute. just by looking up the existing professors' pay. This doesn't work for private universities because those are not public information, but the information is public for many state schools. So I would say, in my opinion, I think it's fair. Though people might want to earn more money in industry, which is a big possibility, but I don't foresee myself going into industry. And also going into industry meant that you might be foregoing those chances and opportunities that academia might be giving you. For example, like a higher chance to stay, or maybe a different kind of career trajectory that industry cannot provide.
Um, Justin, you mentioned that you would like to stay in academia, and you mentioned that the ROI for you has been great. And judging from your experience as well, experiences the even the not the qualitative part of your experiences, it seems like you have got a huge return on investment for all your hard work trying to get into Rutgers and completing this PhD. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you. I think the reason I felt this much of a return of investment is because I'm a first gen student. So everything here, this whole experience is novel to me. My parents didn't went to university, so so to me, having to figure out everything and having to find the right mentors to write the letters is difficult, but the payoff is definitely very worthwhile. So that's probably the reason why I felt it was a big return of investment.
Yeah, I did not know that you were a first gen student. That, of course, like increases your ROI even more, qualitatively, because you get to add this experience to your family history. That is fantastic. And I'm so happy that you're getting to earn like the highest award in higher education today and feel so fulfilled while doing it. um and I wish that you can tell us one advice to someone who wants to apply for a PhD, because I wish there were more students out there who would get the same high ROI, but more importantly, get that same amount of fulfillment that you get from university today. Especially when there's so many reports out there about how students feel like university is not worth it anymore. But you can tell us, you have the story. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to apply for a PhD, but still unsure whether a PhD would be worth it?
Well, one advice I would say is if you're unsure, talk to PhD students. They will tell you everything. Talk to them, reach out to them. The fastest way you can do that is simply look up a person's lab from a university you're interested in. And when you look up a person, they usually have a section called teams or team members. When you look into the team members, you can definitely find their emails there. Reach out to them, talk to them. Uh, especially after talking to them, they could tell you what their experience were. You could also talk to people who runs the programs in those schools. Like you can find the course directors, schedule like a very short conversation with them, talk to them about your experiences and see if you fit into their program. Many of these directors or like professors are more happy to talk to you guys. So all you need to do is just reach out, especially students. Students love to talk about their research and they love to talk about their experiences. And I'm sure by hearing a bunch of stories from different places, you can have a more informed decision on whether or not PhD is for you. Some people might say do a master's, but I would say more or less it might be the same case. You might want to just ask people about their experiences in the program. I would say that if you're a first gen student, education is definitely your fastest way uh, to move up the what's it called? It's one of the biggest things to move up social mobility or something like that. For any prospective students, I couldn't think of a better advice than just trying to talk to other students who have gone through that process.
Thank you so much, Justin. I think what you've done in this session today is you've helped really humanize a very long, or what people think as long, cold, lonely journey towards getting into a PhD program, earning a PhD program, and you gave us a different view from you, a very refreshing, very humanized view about it. And I thank you so much for it.
My pleasure.
For those of you who want to know more about Justin's PhD, just search Justin Ng at Justin Ng and studyinternational.com. Um, and Justin, thank you so much. Lovely to chat to you this morning.
Likewise.
Um, thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.